I think it's useful to think in terms of two challenges, broadly speaking. The first challenge is to boost Mexico's income and wealth, to speed its development, and to reduce inequality while it's still young and growing, while it's still traversing this period of demographic dividend, or bono demográfico, as you say in Spanish. And the reason is that, in our personal lives, it's better to get rich before you grow old. Because if you grow old without having gotten rich, you're never going to get rich. And the same is true for nations. So Mexico needs to take advantage of this period of favorable demographics. At the same time, it needs to prepare for the age wave that looms over the horizon. It needs to put in place more adequate, more robust substitutes for the informal family support networks that now play such a critical role in taking care of the elderly in Mexico. It needs to strengthen its pension system. It needs to broaden and deepen healthcare coverage while putting in place appropriate cost control mechanisms. And it needs to create the infrastructure for a new long-term care system in the future. And it needs to do both at the same time. Well, so much in life is serendipity. Let me pretend that I actually made a rational and deliberate and thought-through choice to pursue this particular career. I think there are two reasons, or at least two reasons. One is that demographics, and in particular the aging of the population, intersects with every other dimension of economic and social life. It affects the family at the one end. It affects the geopolitical balance of power at the other, and it affects everything in between. So it's a very rich canvas. I do a lot of work in healthcare. I do a lot of work on retirement, but I also write about development policy, and I write about geopolitics. I wrote a book called The Graying of the Great Powers a number of years ago. So demographics gives you a way of talking about a lot of other things that are changing in the world, and it gives you, because there are relationships between demographics and these various dimensions of economic and social life. Demographics gives you a way, and an interesting way, of talking about the future. That's number one. Number two, and more briefly, demographics is also projectable. There are lots of things we'd like to know about the future. I'd like to know what the price of oil is going to be next quarter, right? There are lots of things we'd like to know, but we can't know them. The models are complex and contingent, but I can tell you with a great deal of accuracy how many old people and how many young people there are going to be in Mexico in 5, 10, or 20 years. The further out you go, the more uncertain it becomes. But demographics gives you, it gives you, if you will, a framework that you can hang a story on. Because demographics affects and is related to so much else, it's a rich story. And then the final reason it occurs to me is that I realized early on that the challenges posed by the aging of the population were enormous, that neither business nor government was going to solve them very soon, and that if I specialized in this, I'd have something to write about for a long time. And it worked out that way.